Imagine you have spent 20 years mastering a craft. You have earned every title, every accolade, every sign of respect from your peers. Your expertise is your fortress, your identity, the source of your pride. Now imagine that this very fortress is what quietly walls you off from reality, making you slower, blinder, and more fragile than the rawest novice who walks through your door. Your greatest strength has become your most vulnerable point of failure. This is not a hypothetical scenario. It is a psychological trap so insidious that the greatest swordsman in history built an entire philosophy to escape it, a philosophy that declares expertise to be the enemy. Our story begins not on a battlefield, but in a modern temple of expertise, a prestigious architectural firm in Tokyo. Here, we find Kenji, a master architect. For 2 decades, his name has been synonymous with a certain style, clean, severe, monumental structures of glass and steel that dominated skylines and won international awards. Kenji's mind was a library of solved problems. When presented with a new project, his process was not one of discovery, but of recognition. He would efficiently categorize the challenge, retrieve a proven solution from his mental archive, and refine it. This was the pride of the expert, the belief that the unknown could always be rendered familiar, and thus conquered. Then came the commission for the Valley Shrine. The client was a centuries-old Shinto community, seeking to restore a sacred site nestled in a deep forest gorge. Their sole request was that the new structure feel of the mountain itself. Kenji arrived with his expertise. He saw problems of load-bearing, watershed, and material transportation. His mind presented solutions of reinforced concrete and cantilevered beams. He presented his initial sketches, a masterpiece of modern minimalist intervention. The elders were silent. Finally, the oldest among them spoke softly. "We do not wish to conquer this place. We wish to listen to it." For the first time in his career, Kenji's expertise offered no answer. It had, in fact, deafened him to the question. He was confronted with the void that lies beyond the borders of a map, and his map was exquisitely detailed. This is the moment of the closed mind meeting the unbounded problem. To understand Kenji's impasse and the path through it, we must travel back to the dojos of medieval Japan and the meditation halls of Zen monasteries. Here, we encounter the concept of Shoshin, the beginner's mind. It is the state of openness, eagerness, and lack of preconception. As the great Zen teacher Shunryu Suzuki famously said, "In the beginner's mind there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few." For the samurai, this was not merely a philosophical ideal, it was a survival tactic. A warrior who believed he knew all the ways a spear could be thrust would be killed by the one thrust he had not imagined. Expertise creates predictability, and predictability is death in combat, whether against an opponent or against a changing world. The most lethal swordsman in Japanese history, Miyamoto Musashi, embodied this rejection of expertise. In his final work, The Book of Five Rings, written not as a young prodigy but as an undefeated old master, he warns against rigidity. "Do not develop a set stance," he instructs. He changed his style, his weapons, even his art, continually shedding his own seniority. He did not accumulate a way and then reside within it. He practiced what we might call controlled forgetting, the deliberate act of setting aside what you know in order to perceive what is. For Musashi, the ultimate defeat was not losing a duel, but becoming a prisoner of your own technique, a slave to your own reputation. The mind must remain as fluid and empty as still water, reflecting everything, holding on to nothing. Let us return to Kenji, standing in that forest gorge, his expert mind humming with useless data. His first and most difficult task was one of surrender. He had to consciously dismantle his own identity. He was not Kenji the award-winning architect here. He had to become Kenji, who knows nothing of architecture, only of this place. He spent a week not designing, but observing. He sat for hours, watching how the mist clung to the cedar branches at dawn. He noted how the stream carved its path around moss-covered stones, not through them. He felt the difference between the sun-warmed rock and the perpetually damp earth in the shadows. This was the practice of elimination. He eliminated his portfolio, his aesthetic preferences, his desire to impose a form. He performed the small, non-negotiable action of pure perception. Chapter 3. The perception of the empty vessel. With his expert identity surrendered, Kenji's perception began to change. He stopped seeing problems and began seeing patterns. He noticed the ancient builders had used local stone, not because it was the most efficient, but because it would age with the mountain, acquiring the same lichens and weathering at the same rate. He saw that the path to the site followed the natural contour of a deer trail, not a straight line. The beginner's mind is not an ignorant mind, it is a receptive one. It is the difference between a cup that is full and one that is empty. The full cup can receive nothing new. The empty cup is ready for the tea that the present moment wishes to pour into it. Kenji's mind, emptied of preconceived solutions, began to fill with the intelligence of the site itself. This leads to the principle of mushin, no mind. It is the state of pure flow, where action arises not from calculated thought, but from intuitive harmony with the situation. The archer does not think of releasing the arrow. The target itself seems to draw it. For Kenji, mushin began when he stopped designing a shrine and started following the whispers of the gorge. His sketches changed. The lines became softer, mimicking the slope of the land. His material choice shifted from imported steel to the very stone of the gorge, laid using a traditional dry stack method that required no mortar. The structure did not rise from the land, it emerged from it like a geological formation. He was not building on the site, he was continuing a conversation the mountain had begun millennia ago. The final design was a revelation, but not because it was revolutionary. It was because it was inevitable. When presented, the elders simply nodded. It felt, as they had requested, of the mountain itself. Kenji had not applied expertise. He had practiced a form of deep listening. The project was a critical success, but for Kenji, the victory was internal. He had discovered that his true capacity was not in the library of knowledge he had accumulated, but in his ability to temporarily set that library aside. He instituted a new personal ritual. For the first week of any new project, he forbids himself from drawing. He only observes, listens, and writes in a notebook, with no technical terms, only descriptions of what he feels and sees. He has made a system of becoming a beginner, over and over again. So, how does one cultivate this beginner's mind? It requires a disciplined, almost warrior-like approach to your own cognition. First, you must identify the fortress. Notice where your identity is most tightly bound to your expertise. Is it your job title, your years of experience, your reputation for a specific skill? Acknowledge this fortress, not with shame, but with clarity. It is both a shelter and a prison. Second, practice deliberate unlearning. Before entering a significant challenge, consciously state, "What I know may not serve me here." Create a ritual, as Kenji did, that symbolically empties your cup. Third, engage in novice actions. Force yourself to perform a related task in a way you are incompetent at. If you are a writer, write with your opposite hand. If you are a strategist, attempt to solve a problem using only childlike analogies. This breaks the tyranny of efficient, expert thinking. The samurai understood that on the path of mastery, the greatest adversary is not the opponent before you, but the expert within you. That version of you seeks comfort in the known, prestige in the proven, and security in the closed system. The cult of the beginner is a lifelong rebellion against that inner authority. It is the commitment to meet each day, each challenge, and each silent moment in the forest with the humility of not knowing. It is to understand that true strength lies not in the rigidity of a formed fist, but in the openness of an empty hand, ready to receive, ready to grasp, ready to release. The journey never ends. You are simply perpetually beginning. This is what the beginner's mind offers. It is not a step backward into ignorance, but a step forward into a deeper kind of knowing, one not filtered by the ego's need to be right, to be the expert, to be in control. You learn that mastery is not a summit you reach and defend, but a path you walk by, continually returning to the start. You learn that the most powerful tool you possess is not your accumulated knowledge, but your capacity for empty, silent perception. The philosophy of Shoshin teaches you to trade the brittle armor of expertise for the fluid strength of endless curiosity. And so, I leave you with this final question to ponder. In what area of your own life has your expertise, your pride in what you know, become a wall that blocks your view of what is truly possible? Where do you need to become a beginner again? If this exploration of the samurai mind has resonated with you, if you see the value in shedding that heavy armor, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Your reflections contribute to this dojo of shared learning, and if you wish to walk this path further, to explore more of these timeless principles, consider subscribing. A new chapter awaits. Thank you for your presence here and for listening this far. Until next time, remain empty, remain open.